So I'll start out with a couple, uh, just some basic how we ended up on this call together, go over the rules and the topics for today, and then we can just jump right in. So uh, go back about 6 months when the world started changing, and things had just started to change. We started seeing some issues with shows and orders being canceled, and people were starting to talk about medical pods. Remember that phase?
Mhm.
And no matter the people at the top of the food chain at Classic uh, uh, threw together internal meeting, and about 50 Classic people joined in on a Zoom call. And I remember laughing a little bit. That was my first Zoom call, I think. Now it's old hat, but 6 months ago, for me at least, it was the first time I was joining, and Kevin kind of moderated our own internal meeting, and he went around kind of taking the pulse of everybody. And when he got to the sales team, he asked us if we would share with the Classic team what we had been hearing, and so the things that were being shared, as you might understand, are what I call the struggles. Employee retention. How am I going to pay my rent? Orders that are canceling, even though I've already produced, things that were obviously you guys were struggling with. And as I was sharing that, inside my head, I'm thinking, this is not actually capturing and sharing with the Classic people what my calls really were, because the big thing I felt was missing, which is one of the best things about the job that I am fortunate enough to have, is even though we spoke about all those things with you guys, there was a strong sense of just being connected with you guys, just being able to share and commiserate with somebody who's in the same industry going through the same struggles, added a little bit of strength, at least for me, to the connection that we have. And I shared that with the 50 other Classic employees. And I said, as much as we're trying to share and get through this, I said, it sure seems that the group as a whole, being connected to each other and having access to each other is a strength. And it's a strength that hadn't been talked about yet. These Classic conversations that we're having, and there's a number of them taking place, is an extension of that. It's a way for us, large and small, to get together and, yes, maybe share a few golden nuggets that you've discovered that you're able to put forth there and use, that somebody else in the family can use as well. But if nothing else, it's another strong connection point at a time when I think we're all struggling to find a way. Look, we're a face-to-face industry, and not being able to have that access to you guys and to each other has been, for me at least, one of the biggest challenges. So this is a way to do that. Let me add a few more people. Jeff, and somebody's coming in who I don't know. Okay, so that's kind of how we ended up on this call with each other. That being said, let's go a couple of rules and the ground rules that'll hopefully make this easy. As you come in, as most of you have, please put yourself on mute. And then as is appropriate, as things come up, do this. Just throw your hand up. Mel and I will keep our eyes out for hands that fly up. Unmute yourself and once you're addressed, and it should work easily. At least it has for the last few meetings. So that's easy. So let me go over a couple of the other things. As I already sent to you guys, the big four, with the election three weeks away, please be respectful and courteous of each other. Keep in mind, we are under the same umbrella here. Make sure your camera's on if you have one. We'd love to see you as well as hear you. Control your microphone, be aware of your surroundings. I've had to close my windows off because people are mowing the lawn next door. And if possible, as we have these meetings, do your best to arrive on time and obviously participate. The next three, keep in mind, and you know this because you're all seasoned vets with online meetings now, please be aware of your backgrounds and your surroundings. Um, uh, if you want to have a drink, go for it. Try to avoid any of the crunching of food. Avoid obvious landmines. Don't talk about politics, religion, politics, or politics. And the last two, I've already told you, when you want to yap, throw your hand up, we'll recognize you. And if you have phones or anything nearby that you can silence, please go ahead and silence those. Okay. Thanks for sending in all your topic suggestions. If we're not going to hit them today, we will get to them, and keep the cards and letters coming in as new things come up. Reason we chose this morning's topics is because they're pretty appropriate whether you're a small mom and pop 2, 3, 4, 5 person organization, or you're a large mother of all companies on the other end. These topics for today are appropriate for everybody, which is why we chose that. So the three topics that we're going to get into. What have you learned from the pandemic so far that you truly need for your business? And that's aside from customers, obviously. The next topic is the flip side of that coin, which is what have you learned that you don't really need that you might have had before? And we'll close out by talking about how are you preparing for the resumption of your business once we get past some of the hurdles in front of us. With that being said, let's go to the first one, which was, what have you learned that your business really truly needs to, if not thrive, at least move forward during this pandemic? Who wants to take a shot at that and throw your hand up and jump right in? Fire away, Chuck. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, I guess, in some cases.
Hang on, Chuck, when anybody comes in, please tell us who you are and where you're from. That'd be helpful for everybody.
Chuck Michelle with Elite Expo out of St. Louis, Missouri. Let me just touch base on the fact that, yeah, we obviously need customers, but digging deeper into the customer side, we need to develop, if we don't already have, personal relationships with the people that are currently our customers. They're alone. They need to hear from us just as much as we need to commiserate right here on this call. And they learn a lot, and there's a comfort level. So I just always encourage people, stay in touch. Don't worry about the revenue side. Don't talk business. But if you haven't already developed personal relationships with them, definitely make it a point too, because I think many people will find that, a lot of customers end up becoming good friends. You end up with relationships. In our case, I think also the willingness to think way out of the box. Way out of our comfort zone. We traditionally are a company that on the freight side has moved nothing but trade show freight, anything that had with regards to content for trade shows. Now we're looking way out of the box as far as just, moving anything. So that's a departure for us. And also have a business interruption plan. We did not have a plan for this kind of a scenario, but it definitely gets you thinking. But if God forbid this ever happened again, what could we do better? What would we do? Have a plan.
That's interesting. So let's turn the clock back. What have you discovered? If this happened and started all over again tomorrow, what would you have done different?
Well, one thing, we'll adapt from the standpoint, this gets into another question, but we would look hard at all the brick and mortar we have. We found that it's amazing how well and we can function remotely in our process. We'd also change some of our process without getting into detail, but there are definitely some things that we're learning from this.
Great. Thanks, Chuck. Thanks for jumping in the pool first. Yes, Mr. Deckel, fire away. You're on mute still.
I was just going to echo what he said about a plan. We work with one of our customers is a company full of engineers, and they gave us this 30-page doomsday scenario we had to fill out, plan before the end of the year. And we were doing it the whole time. We're like, and then when it happened, we're like, holy, we got the plan right here. So, if you don't have one of those, I could send you what we had to fill out. But you definitely need it. It works for a hurricane, any kind of disruption. it was a godsend, and we were complaining the entire time we were completing it. So
Can you give us an example of something that was on that list?
backup servers, how you communicate to the team other than email. Like you had to everything that we've all had to figure out how to do with everybody being remote. How are you going to get a hold of everybody if they don't report into work? How are you going to do they run refineries, so they're used to like getting everybody out before the hurricane. So it was a pretty, yeah.
If you're up for it, if you send that to me post meeting, I'll make sure everybody gets access to that.
Okay.
Beautiful. I'm looking. Yeah, Jeff, tell us.
Oh yeah, we found the importance of being well diversified, and that we do a large part of our business is trade show, but we still have a good part in more permanent exhibits, and we do a lot of recognition displays, things like that. So we found that at least when the events are down, that we still have some business that we can fall back on, and that we can reuse, that we can still use a lot of our trade show type exhibits for different applications. So we're finding that to be very important. And we've also found that being able to communicate to our clients that we can provide a wide range of services, so that when they need things for social distancing and things like that, which I've seen a lot of great work you guys have been doing when you're what's happening in your shop each week, applications that we can assist in those areas as well, with things like plexi barriers and adapt for those applications.
Have you found that outside trade show work, there are areas of the business that you said that you've kind of filled in with, not that they're thriving, but are stronger than some of the others? Is there an area that seems to be bubbling more than the others?
Yeah, we found healthcare still. They're still building new buildings and putting in new facilities, and still need recognition displays. The education, while they're trying to open up, they still need assistance with social distancing and things like that. So some of those applications, and they like the fact that some of the social distancing stuff can be adapted for display later on as well.
Yeah. Thanks. Go for it, Mr. Golab. You're muted. There we go.
Yeah, so I'm Mark Golab, and I own Golab's Eclipse Displays. I've been doing this business for roughly 25 years, but I'm really new to the family here. And I'll tell you, I honestly was taken back by this, because I thought our industry was pretty much bulletproof. I've watched many things come and go that I thought it just doesn't affect our industry. I mean, the recessions, any of those things, the clients are always buying their booth spaces a year out. They don't want to lose their place in the show line if they've been there for 30 years. And I mean, so I learned that we aren't bulletproof, and it takes, it was this though. I mean, I don't know that there's a lot that would shut down our industry, but I think that this is it. And it's scary, because I don't know if it'll ever come back the way that it was. A lot of my clients are starting to, I think, see that savings in money. And I think they're going to question whether they want to go back, which nobody wants to hear. But thankfully, because I've had clients for 25 years, they use me for so many more things than just what they do with trade shows. And so I've always reached out and gotten into their home offices and showrooms, and is anything, even in terms of, because you're right, they all become friends, every one of them, which is kind of crazy. So probably after 25 years, my best friends are my clients, which is kind of scary. So, I mean, even when they have projects that aren't within their company, they're always throwing things at me. They're like, hey, I've got a friend that wants this. And so we got into cabinet building for houses. I mean, how easy is that to put in your shop? assembly line and build some cabinets and install them in a house. I mean, we do that kind of stuff all the time. Of course, we have the finished work abilities and all that. So we
Hang
can,
on, before you go past that, how did you find those kinds of clients?
well, so in order to, a long time ago, we used to do commercial millwork. And so I had to get my contractor's license in the state of Arkansas. And so I was doing those and also while we were building trade show booths. I kind of got out of the commercial millwork because it's a pain in the butt. But we always have had that skill set. And so I basically just re-invoked that, hey, we're going to start looking back into doing commercial cabinetry, which is just laminated, flat panel doors. I mean, European style cabinets, easy stuff. We do it all day long when we're building booths. So I've gotten back into doing some of that. Also have started doing custom homes. And then because we all know so much about how to build, I actually have started building houses, spec houses in our area. I mean, I don't know how this industry is going to come back, but I've got to be able to pay my people. And so, so we started doing that, buying inexpensive pieces of land and building a little house. We sold 2 so far. Both of them sold before we were finished. And so we're kind of on our way to doing that. And something that I've always done, when I started this business 25 years ago, I had 4 business partners, or 3 others. There's 4 of us. And we bought one out pretty early within the start of the company, about a year into it. And then I bought the other 2 out about 8 years into it. And I had been given advice by one of my clients that was to stay as lean as possible as a company and really be able to see where the fluff is. And I just don't have people that don't make money for me. It doesn't exist. The closest to me would be, well, I just don't have that person. Everybody travels, everybody learns to do accounting and learns to do those kind of things while they're also servicing clients. And so I know it's kind of rough. I mean, we're not a giant company, but it serves us well when we get to a time like this. So we've been kind of living off of the profits. I never take out extra profits. I get paid a salary and I don't change it, even if it's a good year. And so all that money just stays in the company. And so when we come to this, we're able to go along and just eat up all the profits that we've had. And hopefully it comes back before we're through all that.
So Mark is kind of reinforcing what we've already heard now a few times, which is when trade show work recedes, we look for other areas of our expertise that we can kind of fill in the blanks with. I'm not sure many of us can start building homes as an additional business, but can the group share, other than trade show work, some other areas that you've managed to make some traction in and find some sales opportunities? Trent, fire away, dude. Be back to you in a second, Mark.
Hey guys, hello to everyone. Let me be the first I want to take a moment and kind of send my condolences out to those friends of ours in this industry, right, who just didn't make it, right? We all know that that's a very hard fact and it's a truth. And being in this industry for so long, it's still a tough time for us to, be in this situation and see friends of ours who we've partnered with on projects over the years simply have their doors closed. So I want to take a moment for those guys as well, as we all will not, forget about those guys. We did something kind of unique. Some of the people on the call kind of know what our story was, but we sat down and we looked at what do we have. And one thing that we came up with was space, right? We had space. It wasn't necessarily machinery. It wasn't, any of those sort of things. It was just space. Now, what do we do with this space? Our COO, our Chief Operating Officer, is a girls basketball McDonald's All-American in her high school days. She went on to play 4 years at University of North Carolina and chose the family business over going to the WNBA. Our president, her mom, is a Hall of Fame basketball player coming out of Howard University back in her day. So we're kind of sports minded. I coached AAU basketball for several years, etc. So we had some sports minded in our, wheelbarrow, so to speak. There was a community need. So we reached out beyond the industry, beyond our four walls, and reached into the community's needs at this time because it affected us as an industry, it affected the whole world, community, etc. So we wanted to know what we could do to help the community and survive at the same time. That was kind of our mindset. And lo and behold, guys, with the sports background, talking to some community leaders, etc., the schools were closed, the athletic facilities were closed. We had just recently moved into a 45,000 square foot building from a 10,000 foot. So that was quite a big expansion for us. I'll make this real short, man. We took 35,000 feet and turned it into a state-of-the-art athletic facility. It's a training facility, okay? The mindset is athletic training, education, and a wellness center. So we were able to use a lot of the matrix stuff that we had in-house for the build out with some outside resources for, we don't know anything about basketball courts and workout areas and things like that. Very unique, very risky for us. Just really, the saying, you got to think out of the box. Well, this literally put us in a position to think outside of the industry. As much as we love our industry, it was a time to kind of do what needed to be done to call our workforce back, to keep investing in the families of our business. And our report, man, it's going extremely well. We opened the doors officially about 4 weeks ago. It has allowed us, to be quite honest, to stay in our core business because of the financial turn from the pivot. Okay, it's picking up so much traction because, again, it was community based. It was a community mindset that we were under, and we simply built it. We opened the doors, and they're coming in droves. A lot of you guys don't know. I'm sorry. I'm with 21st Century Expo Group, and we're out of Maryland, and it's a particular part of Maryland that's world famous for, I guess, creating these athletic guys and these girls that just go on to do well at different levels. So training is a big part of our culture here in Maryland. So that was kind of our out of the industry, out of the box thinking. It's generated additional revenue. We've been able to call some employees back. And the unique thing, and I'll tie this together real quick. Not only is it a training facility for all sports, we now have our plans for using that space as an event space as well. So reaching out to some of the local associations who are downsizing their events and just want something small, local, we're able to transform that gymnasium, so to speak, into our own event space following the CDC guidelines.
Wow. Have you, just out of curiosity, I know that's early days, but have you been able to book any small events yet?
We are in communication. I have actually 3 proposals out for 3 small. No one signed the dotted line yet, but it's something that we're looking forward to having plenty. I mean, I'm just maybe a week and a half into this.
Yeah. Way to go, Trent. Thanks. Mr. Bendixson, you had your hand up.
Yeah, and I'm glad you waited because I'd like to build on what Mark and Trent both said. You had said that, Mark's a contractor and we can't all do that. But I remember Mike Davis and Associates down in Austin, Texas. I don't know if anybody remembers him, but at least half of his business was putting in sales centers for commercial real estate. And there's going to be an awful lot of people that aren't going to go back to their offices and high rises. And commercial real estate is going to be completely reimagined when this is over. And so malls the same way. There's going to be retail that's going to be totally changed. The Mall of America, there's parts of Minneapolis right now that look like Beirut. And the Mall of America has gone to those independent businesses and retailers and said, hey, we've got empty mall space. Come on down we've got fixturing and stuff. We'll give it to you free. You can set up pop-up shops down here and sell your product until, you know, your buildings get rebuilt downtown.
Hmm.
And there's going to be a lot of that going on. There's going to be a lot of pop-up shops. If you want to really see something interesting, go Google the prototype Burger King store. They're reimagining their stores to be 2-story, so they can have 3 or 4 drive-ins where the food comes down from the second floor kitchen on elevator drive-throughs. And they'll have like 6 drive-up park slots where people bring the food out. Schools are going to be reimagined. You know, trade shows are going to start up again about a year from now, I'm guessing. But it's not going to start up like, you know, what's his name in the Avengers movie snaps his fingers. It's probably not going to be back to a decent cash flow. I can't remember if it was Freeman or George P. Johnson was predicting until about 2023. And even then, that's going to totally be different. Every industry is going to be changed a little bit. So I think everybody's got to look at other industries and the way they're reacting to it. I mean, we're going to go back to trade shows where there's not going to be a lot of stuff in the booth because there's going to have to be space between all the people. And there's not going to be a lot of carpet. It's going to be vinyl. And there's probably not going to be aisle carpet. There's just going to be one-way stickers. And there's going to be a lot of stuff that's just hanging from the ceiling. It's going to be video, which means that if you want to make some money off these clients, you're going to have to be content creators because a lot of their budget is just going to go to interactive stuff and pre and post show promotion. And there's going to be part of it that's going to be virtual. And that's probably going to stick around, at least until the audiences get back to where they were. So, you know, working with realtors, working with other people like that. I had, you know, Trent's talking about this athletic complex. I had a client, an exhibit manufacturer I was doing advertising and marketing for. They just came out with a brochure to use their product as training centers, shoot houses for anti-terrorism forces to train their guys to clear buildings. And I suggested to them there's probably a bigger market for laser tag centers in empty real estate than, you know, training SEAL Team 6. But that's the kind of out of box stuff with your rental programs that you really need to start looking at. It's not just hospitals.
Mark, let me ask you a redirect. So you've done a good job of kind of capturing some of the industry's pivots points, but your company specifically, Mark Bendixson Incorporated, have you been able to find any of these pivots that have worked for you?
No, but I'm in the midst of changing to a strictly design and consulting business I have for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And my main client dried up on me. So since April or so, I've basically been in hibernation, but fortunately it's just me. And I had been in the process of downsizing. Now, fortunately, some personal, you know, death in the family and some other things, you know, storm damage to my house slowed down my moving into a smaller place. But the fortunate side of that is I was looking at a condo downtown Minneapolis. So luckily I'm not there. Silver lining. But no, I haven't had the pivot.
Right.
But at the same time, I see an awful lot of people pivoting to what they've always done. And I think that expecting people to buy $900 banner stands to put behind them on a Zoom call when you can click the little menu at the bottom and put a JPEG behind you if you've got a plain wall behind you on a Zoom call isn't a realistic plan going forward. In fact, Steve Deckel, kudos to you, man. Everybody else was out there buying plexiglass by the truck and chopping it into 4 pieces and taping it to the back of convenience store registers. You were putting out a do-it-yourself kit for people to make their own personal protection stuff. And I thought that was great and probably bought you more goodwill than imaginable.
Steve, would you jump in there for about 30 seconds and tell us what the heck Mark's talking about?
Yeah, I'll back off you.
But early in the pandemic, and when everybody started talking about the dividers, we we looked at it in terms of how would we do it if we didn't have any tools, or how would we do it if we weren't at these stores and they didn't have customers? So we came up with 3 ways to produce it. And one was people hide the tools from me. That was one set of instructions. One was I'm fairly handy. And then one was I'm a professional. And we gave them clickable lists to go to Home Depot or Lowe's or True Value. These are the drawings. This is what you need to buy. And I mean, it's just because we had a couple of calls and that no one could afford what we were going to charge. So it was a way to not have to answer the call.
Yeah, thanks. All right, so if there's any other hands for what have you learned that you need, that your business needs to move forward? Yeah, Kim.
Hey everybody. So I don't own Zarnowski. I work at Zarnowski, and we were at a different scale than some of your companies. We have 2 million square feet of manufacturing space. So you can imagine we had to learn a lot. We had to lay off a lot of people. I think we've got so much dust on some of our machines. I just don't know if it'll get any dustier. So, you know, we've been trying a lot of things. So in the beginning, we did the hospitals, and that was a really fulfilling activity because, you know, it helped the cause, and we were, you know, bringing a resource that was important. Unfortunately, the hospital, it was almost a little too early. I mean, I think we all thought that we were going to kind of get through this in a few months, and then surprise, it's here and it's not going away for a while. So we haven't done any more hospitals since probably May or June. We've gotten into the virtual world. I think we're also tuned into Amazon and all these great media purchasing kind of engagements, and the virtual event stuff has a long way to go. I mean, we're in like version 0.2. We're not even in version 1.0. I find them disheartening. I find myself, I'm bored. And I've been to at least 20 or 25 of them just to see what's going on. And I'll go to like the Microsoft one, and I'll go to, you know, some of these other companies that have endless amounts of money, and they're still not fulfilling. I mean, based on what we all know. So I've learned that the virtual world is a sad little world, but it's, you know, it's here to stay, and it will be a part of our DNA as long as we all end up staying in this industry for sure. You know, I've learned that in our industry, our sales tools are very relational based selling connections. You know, I've known Harold for 20 years and Mel the same. And, you know, and I'm used to, and Mark, you mentioned that your clients are your best friends. So, you know, when you sell with that kind of a friendly connection and trust, it's a very different kind of selling environment. So when I think about trying to sell other things that may not be as appropriate for the market that I used to have, I realize that my sales skills are not as developed. I mean, I won't say I'm lazy, but it's what I know, it's what I'm comfortable with, it's what I like, it's why I've liked this industry. So I've been taking this time to learn about some of the new sales things that are out there, video stuff, AI, chat boxes. None of it is organic to where we've all come from in the past. So if nothing else, I'm at least learning some new tools so I don't become irrelevant. And I've learned to see how clever people have been. I mean, I commend you, Harold and Mel, for getting out so much great media. I mean, I think you guys give me something every week, and normally I would find that a little disturbing and too much, but it's interesting because it's thoughtful and you guys are taking an opportunity to really either educate people or, you know, offering some new products and services, and I think that's wonderful. And Nicole and I are in a group with Katina where we meet every other week and called Women in Events. And there's a couple of you that are that can join us, and the rest of you just will have to hear about it. So anyway, with that, again, I commend you all. I know these are not easy times for any of us, and you know, we're all doing some soul searching. And Trent, as you said, there's a number of our comrades who will not be in this industry or not in the industry now. And I'll leave with this one story. So one thing that I think my biggest takeaway from our industry is I had a project. We didn't have the resources to do it. So I contacted a friend at Freeman and I said, hey, do you want this project? I said, I wish we could do it. It's my favorite client. I can't do it. We don't have the bandwidth. Not only did she, obviously she was happy to get a free lead, but on top of that, she said, you know what, I am happy to train you in some of the nuances of the digital virtual platform, and I will do that for you. I mean, I would consider her one of my top competitors. And I'm not a very emotional person, but I was moved to tears that she was willing to do that. And, and I think this pandemic has done that for a lot of us that, we've reached across the aisle to people that, we're frenemies or, whatever we want to call us. And we are, genuinely concerned for one another. We want each other to succeed because it's important for us to keep this industry going, whether it be a year from now, Mark, or 3 years from now. I mean, this is our tribe.
Well, you've kind of hit the nail on the head. It's what we started out talking about as far as having I'll use that, a tribe where we're all kind of pulling the same rope in the same direction at the same time. It's one of the reasons that when I read about our industry's advocacy groups, they're all working for all of us. And it kind of tells you, yeah, Mr. Golab, go right ahead, jump in. You're still on
I
mute.
got it.
Here we go.
I got it. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I waited. I just wanted to let you be aware. One other thing that I wanted to, if you are an exhibit company and you store your clients' exhibits, now is a really good time to reevaluate what you're charging for storage. I personally was pretty easygoing on that front, and my clients didn't really pay for the building because they gave me enough work that I kind of felt like I was getting it through the work that I was doing. And so since then, I've gone back and reevaluated the storage, what I pay for my rent versus what they're actually taking up. And I've changed storage rates, and that gets me closer to paying for my entire facility with just my clients storing their booths. And so if it goes for a very long time, I could probably leave my building sitting here and paying storage and not have any employees if I needed to. So just a thought to go back and maybe reevaluate that kind of thing.
Have you gotten any pushback from the raising of rates?
Of course. Yeah. But I mean, they have to have an understanding that, basically I phrased it in the sense of, hey, there was a give and take with shows and services that I was providing for you, building of exhibits and whatnot. But now there is no give and take with that. Now it's simply all I'm doing is storing your stuff, and I need to be able to pay for the facility with your storage.
Mr. Desher, you had your hand up?
Hi, thanks. I'm Mike Desher. I'm the owner of Media Group. And it's so heartening to be part of this group because I have not done any or maybe a little business with Classic. So I'm honored to be invited to these meetings to talk about it. And I'm just thrilled that the people that are in this business that have square footage, that have, you're building exhibits, you're doing all of that, are able to stay in business and pivot a little bit and go together. My business, it's funny how an angel sits on your shoulder when you're starting a business and you're not really sure if you're completely out of your mind. But when we started our business, basically around 2004, there were 5 of us, and we were all coming from the high technology industry. And we decided immediately that we would never have offices. We were used to working remotely, and we always would. And that's helped us dramatically because it allows us to increase our margins or compete on a cost-wise basis because we don't have infrastructure and we don't have employees. We took a very close look at the cost of an employee versus the cost of a contractor in a particular time frame and measured that together. And we were able to survive so far because when we actually started, we started as a marketing consulting firm. And that dragged us along into the promotional products industry a little bit. And that drug us into the trade show business. So we cover all of these different things. And the reason I'm getting around to this in a long way is when this happened, we had 6 or 7 shows that were scheduled out and ready to go. And we got calls from everybody literally within about 3 days. And it was either the call, hi, we don't know if we're going to do the show because our company is just restricted from travel, to hi, we're not doing it, we don't know when we're doing it again, to hi, we're going out of business because we don't know how we're going to be able to deal with this. So it was very heartfelt. So when we got through all those calls, all of us got on the phone and said, what are we going to do? And the first thing that we do, and the thing that I would encourage everybody to do if you haven't done it yet, is we pulled out every person we've ever done business with. So we ran lists of, if it didn't matter if you bought 100 pencils from us 15 years ago, we picked up the phone and we called them. We didn't send emails. And we said, hey, how are you doing? Times are tough. We just want to make sure you're okay. And a lot of times people came back and went, hey, wait a minute. We know you're primarily in the trade show business, but you sell promotional products outside the trade show business also, don't you? And they went, yeah, of course we do. They said, do you have sources for things like masks and hand sanitizer and PPE? Said, of course we do. And we did, because we had great relationships with 3M and MacRite and a lot of people that make hand sanitizer that we were dealing with before on large scales, and Chinese companies. So we were immediately able to fulfill orders for, I call it tonnage, but close to 1 million masks and hand sanitizer and everything else, which added quite a bit of cash flow. And I think it's nice. A lot of you talk about diversity. It's good to have diversity in your company. So when one thing starts to slow down, you can leverage on another. And it's kind of what we've done. So I just kind of wanted to share that, and then just staying in touch with your customers and the ability that we had by learning to work remotely early on. We were able to teach all of our clients who had never done it how to do it. And we've spent, I don't even know how many hundreds of hours, because we used to deal primarily in WeConference or free conference call or Skype or FaceTime. And for some reason, Zoom came out of the woodwork. So we had to learn that. But we do a lot of teaching to businesses all over. And it became even harder where we are now. I'm in Williamsburg, Virginia, which is a very small town. And I came from Los Angeles 2 years ago. So a little bit of culture shock, and it's really interesting what happens at a small town. The one gentleman, I can't remember his name, is from Maryland. You can probably relate to this. Everybody knows your name. And if your name is bad, nothing, but boy, we have people coming out of the woodwork. Can you help us? We can only afford to get 100 masks. No problem. You can have them for free. We'll ship them over to you. So anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Trent. Mike, that's really nice. All right, before we lose everybody in 15 minutes, the second topic was the flip side. What have we learned that we don't particularly need or required some changing? Is there anybody that has any of that right off the bat? I'll loosen the jar by sharing. I don't know it personally, but I've heard the story. Classic itself discovered that the bank that we had been using maybe was being used out of convenience or out of familiarity, but in the last few months, the management at Classic changed over to a local, more regionalized bank that is able to offer us much more than we thought we needed. So something that might seem small has helped gain more traction for us, just as an example of something that, the flip side. Anybody else have any things that you figured out, whether it's how Trent's already shared how you used space and environments from maybe used to be storage. Now they don't have the storage more, let's make a basketball court. Any other little nuggets there that anybody has that you can share with us? Okay, then. I'll leave that on the table and go straight back to sorry.
I was just gonna say, well, the showroom that we made Hendrik set up, or nomadic display, we converted that to a TV studio. I think some other people have done that. So we hung lights and put in truss, and Hendrik, you wouldn't recognize it.
Smart choice, Steve.
Yeah, but you mentioned that to me before, Steve. take no more than 2 minutes and share a little bit of the headline of what that studio is and what you're doing with it. That's appropriate for everybody.
So we either do, if it's a one of those very sad virtual events, we will live stream to a YouTube channel for our clients. And then if it's a virtual event, you can post a link and it's a YouTube video. But what they don't tell you is you can also just post a YouTube channel and live stream to any of these virtual events. And we live stream from our showroom. And then also we bought a Matterport 3D scanner, and then we use that as the black box to scan.
Thanks. Our last topic was, how are you preparing for a resumption of business post-COVID? Is there anything that anybody has that fits that category of topic that you can share with us? Nope. Yes, sir. Hendrik, fire away.
Okay, well, like I said before, picking up the phone and calling is good. When we were doing that, it also resulted in talks when we answered or asked a very simple question. It's like, are you planning ever on getting back into doing trade shows? And what is it looking like for you when you do that? Are you, instead of doing one major national show a year, are you going to do 4 regional shows? Is your booth going to be a 20 by 20 instead of a 40 by 40? What are you thinking about? And we decided to make all those conversations absolutely free. And we're doing an awful lot of pre-planning, actually starting in 2022. A lot of our discussions are not 2021 because it's still so uncertain. So we've moved the needle and said, let's talk about 2022. And if we get done early, let's get done early. But just having open and honest, what do you think it's going to be like? Did you save your budget money? Did you have to spend it? So that's what we did.
Gotcha. Thanks, Mike. Hendrik, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces, and wanted to say hello. I work for Exhibitors. Like Kim, I don't own Exhibitors. I'm just one of the soldiers in the field, right? So what I will share with you though is that on a personal level as well as within the company, we just went back and did some housekeeping. Before COVID, I felt like we were running at 250 miles per hour, and I don't even know how we kept the wheels on the car sometimes because it was just going so super fast. And I think what happened to us was, it hit us like a freight train, and we were paralyzed for a little bit. And we reacted late to some of the immediate trends in our industry. And, we ultimately decided not to go after face shields and masks and dividers because we were late to the game. And we felt like we will be chasing things into a rabbit hole that doesn't fit our business, right? And so we more focused on housekeeping. Some of these topics were brought up, let it be storage. We looked at our customers and said, it's time to clean up. Why do we have these crates from 20 years ago in this warehouse, right? Go through that, and clients were willing to pay for it and go through the process and understand even what they have. And then it led into good conversations about strategy and evaluating their programs like we all supposed to do, we just didn't have really a lot of time to do. So there's a little bit of that. It punched us hard. And then we realized that we had to do some soul searching internally as well as who we want to be when we come out of this. What is our company supposed to look like? Who are the clients we want to work with? Who are the vendors we want to work with? Who has been good and who are we just, as somebody else said, have in our portfolio of partners because they've always been there. So we just did a lot of evaluation in that regard. And it motivated a core of people in our company just to really do evaluations, look around, research alternatives, get familiar with new technology. And it gave people projects because, some of our account managers literally sat there and had nothing to do from one night to the other. It's a scary thing because these are talented people. They know what they're capable of, and they're not married to the industry like I am. They're about to leave because they're good in what they do. That's the biggest concern that we had as a company, the loss of intelligence, the loss of expertise, the loss of partnership and friendships in the company. If we let that all go, I don't know if we can rebuild this. It doesn't matter when our industry comes back. And I'm not sure our company would ever be the same. So, we're striving really hard to keep this core group together. We have been fortunate through some pivoting activities. I agree, virtual is a big deal. It will stay forever. It's part of the marketing language now. It will be a complementing tool. We had to learn a lot. We're still amateurs, but we're in the game. There's a lot more to learn. And corporate interior work, I agree with all of you, millwork, permanent installations. We're good at that. We have great designers. All of you have. We're good carpenters. All of us are. That's another market that we have been fortunate to kind of, keep us afloat and keep us going. But, Harold, as your question was about, how do we prepare for this coming back? I don't have the answer. I hope what we're doing is going to work. My biggest fear is that good people are about to leave our industry. Even if we want to hold on to them, we all had to take pay cuts. We all had to make concessions. Good people are about to jump our industry, and I don't know if we're going to get them back. Yeah. That's my biggest concern. And I'm curious what many of the business owners here in this panel, how do we prepare for that? How do we get that intelligence back that is leaving? Nicole, I see you raise your hands. I'd love to hear.
So I don't know if, and this is not for the pity party, but I became a business owner on February 14th of this year. So 2 weeks before the pandemic hit, I purchased Exhibit Expressions from Jocelyn Wells. So I finally took the leap to become an entrepreneur, and I did it in an industry that I love and that I've removed myself from several times in my career. So Hendrik, the reason I raised my hand is those who have been bitten by this vampire called the event and exhibit industry may go away for a little bit, do something else, but just like we do keep relationships with the people that the clients that aren't doing anything right now, we stay in touch with those people that you think may be lifers, but right now there's not a livelihood in this industry. And we're going to need a little bit of those great folks to go out and do something else for a year or two, but you stay in touch with them and you tell them how good things are, and I bet you'll be able to get some of them back. I don't know if anybody else has tried to leave the industry. Harold, I seem to recall, was it Hotel California?
Yeah, 10 years. Yep.
Yeah. So you posted an article about you could check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. Either that, or I read what you had said, and that's what popped into my head. I tried to leave the industry several times, and I just kept getting sucked back in. There's no crap like this that's ever happened, but we've had bad times before, and people have drifted away or had to, close their businesses. But you know what? Some of them popped up a couple years later with something else. So I think whatever antibody is in us, whatever resilience we've all built up, I think we'll carry some of us back to the industry. And if somebody has to go do something else for a little while, that's okay. But let's stay in touch with them. Let's not lose those good folks.
Thanks, Nicole. That's a nice thing to have towards the end of our call. Mel, I'm going to ask you a favor. Can you share in just a couple minutes how Classic has, like I think with our account managers, instead of doing just one thing, they're now doing two things? That might be appropriate to share.
I can. So we're kind of in the process of making that shift. And as those of you have worked with in the past, you've known that the rental department kind of operates separately than the purchase department. So you would work with Jim Shellman and his team on the rental. And if you were doing a purchase, you would work with Edie's team as far as project managers in Paris, who's on this call. But we would kind of coordinate those together to some extent, but they still operated separately. And now we're doing cross-training of the the project managers within those two groups, so that they can, if someone calls in and says, I need to purchase this, but I want to blend it with some rentals, you'll just work with one project manager instead of having to work with 2 project managers like you have in the past. So that's one of the things that we're kind of working, we're blending. We're pretty far along with it, I guess, but they're doing cross training right now.
Plus, it gives that individual employee, I used to do X, now I do X and Y. So it gives them a little bit more motivation or reasons to want to be where they are.
Well, do you mind if I share a story here real quick?
Sure.
All right. So it kind of goes back to kind of pivoting, but this is even pivoting before the pandemic. Several years ago, I visited a classic distributor in the Rust Belt, and I went to his showroom, his location, and his showroom was down by the railroad tracks on the river. It was just an awful, awful location. Across the street was a towing company with, you know, with the fence around it and guard dogs in the fence. It was just a terrible location. But he was doing well. Part of his business was he sold trade show exhibits, and he also provided labor to the local convention hall and other events within the city. So we talked about his business, about trade shows and all of that, and we got to the end, and he says to me, "Do you want to see my other business?" I said, "Oh, okay." So we walk out of his building, we walk across the parking lot, and there's this other building there, and it's a 4-story building. It's brick. It looks like it was built in 1857. Not many windows. It's kind of dark and dank. And we go inside the building, and there's 5 guys in there. And it's very dark in there. And the guys are all doing woodwork and lots of shiny brown wood. And they're very, very busy. And there's stacks. I mean, I'm talking stacks and stacks and stacks of wood. And he explains to me, and I was like, "What is this?" He said, several years ago, I realized that there was a huge need within a certain industry that they needed modular cabinetry. And so I designed a bunch of modular cabinetry that business, the owners of that business can call me up and say, you know, I need a bookcase, I need the cabinet that's this side, I need a desk, I need this. And they can kind of mix and match, and then I have certain accessories that go with it. It was for the funeral industry. So he was building showrooms, modular showrooms for the funeral industry, and doing very, very well. Well, you can imagine I've had several conversations with him since, and sadly, his business continues to do very, very well within that modular component within that industry. So he recognized a way to shift his business, make his business not as dependent on the trade show industry a long time ago. And it's allowed him to kind of coast to some extent and really kind of profit from that even during the pandemic.
Appropriate, sort of. Kim, I think you'd appreciate that, right? Look, group, we hit our hour. I want to leave you with a couple things. Number one, we will be doing this again next month. The topics have yet to be chosen. I'll go through the ones you've already sent me, as well as any new ones you want to send in, please feel free. And since we didn't do introductions, because that would have taken too much time, I strongly encourage you to go through the list, look at the emails, and connect with each other on LinkedIn. One of the overall themes that kept coming up during this call is the connections that we have. We're not selling to each other. We're not necessarily competing with each other. We're working together and trying to share to make sure that we can build a bridge to whatever tomorrow looks like. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for participating. And hopefully we'll see you again next month. By the way, we'll send out a link to this recording in case anybody wants to see it and share it with others. Thanks, guys.
Ciao, everyone.
Take care.